Solve. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please give an enormous welcome to our Deputy Leader, Paul Nuttall, MEP.
Good morning, conference.
Good morning.
Like many of you, I am British, but I am also a very proud Englishman. And I wish to speak to you today about the centuries-old union between Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and last but not least, England. The union that unites the Isles, the union that has protected us and brought us peace and prosperity for the past 300 years. We have all benefited from the close cultural and family links and many shared economic and cultural ties. It was this mighty union that built an empire so big the world that the sun never set. It was this union that ended the slave trade. It was this union that was responsible for keeping the likes of Napoleon and Hitler at bay in Europe. In recent decades, the member countries of the Union have successfully campaigned to have greater decision-making powers in order to reclaim powers from Westminster. This has led to the creation of national parliaments and assemblies in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. The UK Independence Party believes it is right to make government more accountable to the people it serves, and it accepts the desires for increased national self-determination. We can speak on this issue with an authority that the other political parties cannot, because we are the only political party that has elected representation in all 4 parts of the kingdom. As we know, ladies and gentlemen, our party was formed to get us out of the corrupt and undemocratic European Union. But now it seems we have a new fight on our hands, and that is to protect our own great union. Last year, the Scottish people were given a choice of whether they wished to remain members of the UK. There was a staggering turnout in the referendum of 84.5%, which set a new record for any election held in the UK since the introduction of universal suffrage in 1918. The independence debate engaged voters across the political spectrum and notably across generational and gender boundaries. It was good for democracy and it was good for politics in general. Along with the overwhelming majority of UK citizens, UKIP was strongly in favour of Scotland remaining within the Union. We applaud the Scottish nation's decision to remain part of the UK. However, we condemn the Westminster and Holyrood government handling of the referendum and its aftermath. During the campaign, politicians from the 3 establishment parties promised greater powers to the Scottish Parliament. But I agree with the 70% of people polled by Survation who believe that the decision to hand more powers was made during a time of electoral panic. The source of this panic, which sparked the great giveaway, was a single rogue poll that revealed a shock 2% point lead for the Yes campaign. This poll contradicted almost every other conducted in 2014. The result saw Cameron, Clegg and Miliband shuttle up to Edinburgh and promise Scotland everything under the sun to remain in the Union. Now let's be straight here. What UKIP was offered was independence in everything but name. While we in UKIP feel that the Scottish Parliament should receive the powers that they were promised, the problem remains that while Holyrood is set to become more powerful, the SNP have made it clear that they still intend to vote on English-only matters at Westminster. This is unfair, ladies and gentlemen. It is wrong and it punishes the English. Currently, MPs representing a constituency in Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland can vote on legislation in England, despite their own constituents not being affected by that same piece of legislation. So as it stands, Westminster has two tiers of MP. Those from Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland who can vote on English issues, yet English MPs cannot vote on issues that have been devolved to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. This is fundamentally wrong and it flies in the face of our democratic principles. It is also likely that after the general election there will be even more SNP members of Parliament sitting in Westminster whose concern will be Scotland and not what is best for the United Kingdom. In this scenario, the currently proposed plans would add confusion to legislating and would lead to even more backroom deals away from the eyes of the voters. With the exception of London, ladies and gentlemen, which has its own assembly, England has effectively been left with nothing but token gestures and broken promises. We in UKIP intend to right this wrong. Scotland has a population of around 5.3 million people, whilst England has a population of 10 times that. Scotland has its own devolved parliament, a First Minister, MEPs in Brussels, but the SNP are still not happy. They are like a child that has been given an inch but still wants a mile. Nicola Sturgeon has said, and I quote, "One of the first objectives of a strong group of SNP MPs will be to push back against the Tories' proposals and ensure continued protection of the rights of all Scottish MPs to have a say on budgets, taxation and other key issues." So what can be done? She has already made it clear that she will not willingly ask her MPs to leave the room when English matters are being voted upon, which will lead to the unacceptable situation in which our union's democracy becomes unbalanced to the point where the Scottish tail is wagging the English dog. In a recent poll, 3/4 of the UK's over 50s have said that they believe in English votes on English issues, and 2/3 of Scots said so in the same poll. Nicola Sturgeon's intentions are well documented. It is also well known that her intentions are also out of step with the majority of people in the UK and indeed the majority of people in Scotland. Yet still, the Conservatives, Labour and the Lib Dems continue to play a weak hand. We in UKIP, ladies and gentlemen, will play a strong hand because we believe in cleaner and fairer votes for English MPs on English issues. The Conservatives' plans are typically weak and will not properly address the vital issues at stake in this country. They give Scottish MPs far too much power south of the border. William Hague has proposed that MPs for English seats should have the ultimate veto over votes which only affect England. He has suggested that the Common Speaker would have the job, though, of deciding which measures should be treated as England only. Hague's proposals are a recipe for disaster. It is almost inevitable that the result will be the politicisation of the role of the Speaker, and leading on from this point is the issue of leverage, whereby the potential for nationalist MPs to form coalitions on English-only matters in order to force through their own agenda on other issues is something that Hague's proposals actively encourage. What is clear from the Tory proposals is that they will let down the English once again. We in UKIP, ladies and gentlemen, are committed to not letting this happen, and therefore we advocate English votes on English laws in the House of Commons, not as a way of weakening our union, but as a way of preserving and strengthening it. And where is the Labour Party on this great issue of our time? Well, let me tell you, as with everything else, it is in a bloody mess. Labour have refused to support the idea of English votes for English laws in the wake of the Scottish referendum, with Ed Miliband arguing that it would divide Parliament. This is disappointing, but highly predictable, that Labour is sidestepping this great issue of our day. They are clearly shaken by the fact that Scottish voters are losing confidence in them, and they are given the dire poll predictions for the up-and-coming general election. They do not want to further antagonise the Scottish voters. The Labour Party also do not want to lose the influential bloc of Scottish Labour MPs when it comes down to pushing through devolved issues in England. They are putting their party above country, ladies and gentlemen, and for that reason, the Labour Party on this issue are a disgrace. And what is Labour's solution? It is to take us down the route of EU-inspired regionalisation, which will facilitate the European Union's plans to divide and conquer the UK by splitting England into smaller units. The EU fears nothing. It fears nothing more than a strong, united, Eurosceptic England. And that is why they are using their useful idiots in the Labour Party to bound ahead with their plan to split England into Euro regions. We in UKIP have a proud history of fighting EU regionalisation, and I am telling you today, Mr Miliband, you will not divide up England without a fight. What England needs first and foremost is for English-only matters to be debated and voted on in the House of Commons by MPs who only represent English constituencies. We do not need EU-inspired, Labour-sponsored regionalisation. We will oppose William Hague's half-baked proposals, and we will oppose Labour's point-blank refusal to give a voice for England. We will advocate English votes on English laws in the House of Commons as a way of preserving our union. And let me say this to English MPs. If you don't agree with English votes for English laws, if you don't believe that the English should have a voice, then go away, step aside, and leave it to somebody who does. Now, there are some in politics who believe that the devolution genie can be put back in the bottle. You know, many of us, including myself, were opposed to devolution. But whether we like it or not, we are where we are. And we have to move towards a viable model of representation for the English. And that is why English votes on English laws will be a UKIP manifesto commitment. The biggest threat to the union, ladies and gentlemen, is inequality of power, which is what we have at this present moment in time. It harbours resentment, it harbours division. We must find the right balance, where everybody has an equal voice, where everybody has an equal say, where everybody feels that they are properly represented and listened to. If we aren't brave enough to meet this head-on, we will be letting down not just the English, but every single British citizen. Ladies and gentlemen, I personally will not let the union die. UKIP will not let the union die. And if we get this policy right, generations will come to defend British heritage, British culture and British identity, just as our people have been doing for over the last 300 years. Thank you very much, Conference.